Let's now talk to the studio that created this animation. Mike Buckland, the head of production at Triggerfish Animation Studios, joins us from our Cape Town studios now. Mike, it's such a pleasure to have you with us. A very good morning to you and welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, listen, you've won a plethora of awards. The list is too long to read on air, but I think one of the most notable is a nomination, an Oscar nomination at that. Does it feel real yet, or are you still having to pinch yourself?
It's quite unreal. We're incredibly excited, but also incredibly nervous. You know, it's quite a big thing for us.
Now, did you know during production that you guys were sitting on gold, as it were?
I think, you know, we always knew it was going to be something very special. Those classic stories are just very well loved and universally known, and the whole team was really excited about working on the project. So a huge amount of love and passion was poured into it, and I think that's starting to pay off now when we see how the film is being received.
We'll speak about the content in just a moment. I just want to know the circumstances around this actual production. How did the project come about? Was it commissioned by the BBC? Is it licensed? Tell us more.
It was commissioned by the BBC, and we're working with a company called Magic Light Pictures in the UK, who originated the project. Initially, they put together a team of two incredibly talented directors, Jan Lachauer and Jacob Schuh, in Berlin. And the initial work on the production was done there. They developed the story and did all the pre-production and did about half of the production of the film. And then at the end of 2015, our studio was working on another project with Magic Light, and as we finished it, they asked us if we would join them to help collaborate with them on Revolting Rhymes. And of course, we just jumped at the chance. It was such an amazing project to work on.
The animation industry in South Africa, I think we don't pay much attention to, but it is developing, and I hear that Cape Town is actually at the forefront of it. How did you get it right?
I think we've just been incredibly lucky. You know, there've been a couple of studios that have popped up here in Cape Town that have managed to start producing work that is quite a high level of quality, and I think once you're starting to produce really good work and you're building momentum, you can start attracting people from all over the country to join you. So yeah, and you know, Cape Town does have a sort of reputation in the film industry as a place, as a great place to work.
Would you say it is an industry that one can go into? Is it starting to become lucrative? Some budding people who want to get into animation, would you encourage that?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think that the industry is really starting to grow now. We're seeing more and more work coming to South Africa in terms of service work, and we're also seeing more and more locally originated content that's being developed here for the international market. So I think it's really exciting times for South African animation. I think a lot of studios now are looking to build outwards and build their capacity so that they can take on bigger and bigger projects.
Now, speaking of budding animators, obviously we need to target the littlies with these particular stories. Revolting Rhymes, I mean, Roald Dahl is world famous for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Matilda, The Big Friendly Giant, The Witches, the list is on, it goes on and on. But what I love about his work is that while it is targeted at the little guys, it also appeals to adults as well, because there's some innuendo that's there that I think adults can quite catch. How did you get the balance right, you know, to say we want to make sure that we capture as wide an audience as possible with this?
I think that's actually one of the most difficult things with script writing, and you know, I'd have to give credit to the directors on that. They really spent quite a long time weaving all the individual stories into one thread in a way that would be really entertaining to children and also have that like touch of humor that appeals to the adults. But I think that's something that, you know, the source material is also very good at, because Roald Dahl, he writes for kids, but you can definitely sense there are other themes there that adults would appreciate and enjoy.
And just maybe share with us some of the lesser known details of what it took to put this together. You know, is there an inside joke about the type of animation that you did, or perhaps the wolf's nose, or something that we could look at when we get to see the movie and just say, oh my goodness, he did tell us that maybe one ear was bigger than the other in The Big Bad Wolf?
Well, I can't think of any sort of mistakes that I could point out to you. I hate to point out any mistakes anyway. But you know, it's hard to think. It was a really incredible production. I think the most interesting thing for us as a studio was working with another team that was in a different location. So we were working with a team in Berlin as well as a team in Cape Town, and figuring out the logistics of getting information back and forth, and talking about creative abstract concepts with people with quite different cultural backgrounds. We found very difficult at first, sort of understanding when somebody said this and what did they mean by that. So we did have a few funny situations where we sort of misinterpreted what the director was looking for, simply because although we're both speaking English and speaking very, very good English, the sort of cultural nuances are slightly different. But it was a really, really amazing experience. Really interesting.
Darn it, I was hoping for a bit of a scoop, but let's continue and talk a little bit about the technicalities. You know, the animation industry is quite fascinating because you have the 2D, you have the 3D now, they're very textured as well, and then of course we have different kinds of animation depending on which part of the world you're coming from. We see the Asians have a particular type as well. Was there a decision that was made that this is how we're going to make this a particular production, and this is why?
Yes, absolutely. I think every time you make a film, you really want to make something that's unique and special in its own way. And from what I understand, the directors found their inspiration in puppet theatre. They'd been thinking about a lot of different ways of making the film, and they didn't want it to look like a traditional CG animated film. They really wanted to make something look special and unique. And they were drinking coffee at a coffee shop one day opposite a puppet museum in Berlin. And they happened to sort of go in and have a look around, and they were really inspired by the sort of hand-carved look of the puppets and the sort of flat treatment of the backdrops and sets. So that was their initial way into finding a look and design for the world. Well, congratulations to you once again, and fingers crossed, okay? Bring it home. Congratulations, and thank you so much. And that was Mike Buckland. He's the head of production at Triggerfish Animation Studios.